Hi again, and welcome back to Denver Wellness Digest. Chris Perez here as always, and with me in the studio again today is Marissa Gavel, LPC. As you guys may remember, in the past couple weeks we've been talking about coping skills and different types of coping skills. Today we wanted to talk about distress tolerance versus coping skills. And I gotta be completely honest here, Marissa, once again you brought me a term that I just don't even know. And so if you can do me a favor and give us a rundown of what distress tolerance even means, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah. So when we're using coping skills, like we mentioned before, we are able to access this frontal part of the brain. So we're going to make some decisions. We have some critical thinking skills. We got our ABCs laid out in front of us. When I need a distress tolerance skill, though, I have moved my functioning to the back of the brain, where I can do fight, flight, freeze, maybe some fawning, which is really just kind of acquiescing and not really being able to have any critical thinking. But my decision-making skills and the stuff that's going to keep me safe might not really be ready to be accessed. So I need to get myself from back here to up here with a distress tolerance skill.
Gotcha. So really we talked about this offline, moving from that frontal lobe to the limbic system for just pure fight or flight, and wanting to get back into the frontal lobe.
Right, right. So when you have ever seen, if you're at the grocery store or even on TV, you see a child having a complete meltdown tantrum. They're on the ground, they're flailing their arms, they're doing things that don't even look human. That is the perfect example of somebody only being able to function out of what they have back here. And they have to cry it out, and you kind of have to wait for them to come down, and then you say, buddy, what's wrong? What was going on? How do you feel? Because we have to wait for them to get here to tell us. So instead of being adults that are going to be able to throw tantrums in the grocery store, we're going to have some skills to do that for ourselves until we can actually get back up to our executive functioning.
Oh, good. I think we're going to have to boost this episode. And honestly, when you talk about the fawn response, it makes me think of a possum and playing possum. And it also thinks of me trying to ask girls out in high school.
Yeah, definitely.
So I could have used these skills then.
Yes, yes. We all need them. I think a lot of times when we are in that distressed state, we're not necessarily aware. Once again, we're not using our good stuff right here. We're using some of the more rudimentary tools. Sometimes people even refer to it as lizard brain. If you think about how the brain has adapted, that's the little tiny guy that's just barely getting along. He's not doing a lot of deep thinking.
I've heard that concept before, lizard brain, and it does. I always just picture a lizard crawling out onto a rock to get sun.
Right,
lizard
very
cold.
basic.
Yeah, get sun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's really cool. So how can we get our brains to go back from that limbic system to the frontal lobe and back to the place of reason and logic?
So first, before we even get into a skill, it's understanding that brain science and on a basic level that we're talking about, but giving yourself that patience and grace to know that you, just like that 3-year-old, are just going to be there for a minute and you're going to be okay. When you're in that fight-flight response, we think danger is near, it's imminent. That's why we have that built into our natural, receptors. But having that reminder that I am okay, and I can get through this. Unless, of course, if you're in distress because it's life-threatening, you call 911, you get your help. I'm not saying these are skills that are going to, save you from a fire. But witnessing a fire and having trauma, this skill could work.
And that's a great example. And I think about it like that feeling of panic. My heart's racing, my hands are clenched, my body's tense.
Yeah.
Is it something that is involving just different multiple systems of my body all at once?
Absolutely, yeah. So you're in distress because all of your systems are ringing the alarm, right? So, for example, if I'm in flight mode, my feet might get tingly, I might be ready to run, I might be hyper aware of my exits, we call that hypervigilance, but everything in your body, you're starting to watch your breathing because it's preparing, your heart rate might be going up, your whole system is ready to go because of an emergency. The problem is sometimes we perceive emergency where there isn't any, and that's when we need those skills to be able to function our best when we're in one of those traumatic sort of situations.
Good. So it sounds like now we know how to recognize when this might be occurring. What are some skills we might want to put in place?
Yeah. The one that I like to teach the most is called TIP skill. It's a DBT skill. TIP stands for temperature increase, increased heart rate, progressive muscle relaxation, and paired breathing.
Okay.
So you want to do them in order because there's kind of a reason, but if you could do any one of them, that's going to help you. So they aren't mutually exclusive in that if you don't do all of them, you're not going to get the benefit at all. but all four together, you're going to get the most benefit. So T for temperature, we're looking for cold or hot.
Okay.
For this instance, we're going to go with cold because we are trying to get ourselves out of that distress and not necessarily down to be calm, but more into like next action. So you would do warmth if you are already you're in distress, but you want to take a nap, or you need to just calm down and feel kind of warm, cozy, and safe. Whereas cold, you're going to be like, oh, okay, here I am, that kind of thing. So T for temperature, you can do ice. If it's cold outside, you can just go outside. You can do cold water splashed on your face. So any sort of little cold burst to the wrist, the back of the neck, or the forehead can be really helpful. I, increased heart rate. You can do jumping jacks. You can run in place. You could do any sort of little calisthenic aerobic thing. I'm not saying go for a run. I know how you like to go and clear your mind and everything, but this is like a short 10-15 minutes. So I want your heart rate up, but I don't want you sweaty. I just want you elevated a little bit.
A couple burpees, maybe some running in place. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And then the reason for that, of course, so we have our temperature, shock, increased heart rate. I want to get my heart back into a rhythm. So I might be going like this because I'm upset, but if I do it and I'm controlling it, then I can bring it down.
Gotcha.
So I'm kind of taking control of each system one at a time. So then our P is progressive muscle relaxation, and our other P is paired breathing. You can do those at the same time, and you kind of will with relaxation, but to focus on one P at a time. For our paired breathing, we are just really focusing on breath. So you've mentioned square breathing before, I believe? Yeah. Do you want to speak on what is square breathing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Squared breathing is actually an exercise that's pretty well known and pretty well utilized for stressful situations, and it's a 4-second breath in, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, wait 4 seconds, and then breathe in again.
Mm-hmm.
And so just that cycle, and it's the act of those paused breaths that really helps you be more mindful and slow down.
Absolutely. And the reason they call it square breathing too is because you can kind of do this while you're doing your breathing to remind yourself of what's next. Even doing this with my finger here, I am focusing, and that's another way to kind of bring myself in to that focus.
That's cool. I hadn't thought of that. I visualize it, but I actually like the physical action of doing that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just another way to kind of, bring that dexterity in and focus that brain for sure. My personal favorite part of this is the progressive muscle relaxation. I tend to use that one by itself more often than the others personally. And if you've ever done a yoga class, you've done this before. So you can start at your toes or you can start at your head, wherever you want. And you're just really clenching each muscle group as you go, and you're holding it until you get all the way down. Your whole muscle, all your muscles are like this. And then we're slowly releasing them to bring us back into our physical self. So that's the one for me that makes me feel the most back in my body. For some people, the temperature one that's the one for them. So like I said, a little bit different for everybody.
So try these things, see what works and what doesn't. And remember, you don't want to put a full bag of ice on your head. That's probably going to cause you bradycardia or a slow heart rate and could cause some problems. Marissa, thank you so much for that information. And as always, if you liked what you saw, click like and subscribe below. We'll see you next time.